Elite Facts presents
Incredible facts about Spartans you need to know.
7.
No obesity allowed. Yeah, so when you think of Spartans, you tend to think of jacked up dudes in underwear, capes, sandals, and a helmet while holding swords and shields. It's what we've been led to believe thanks to mainstream media. And guess what? For once, this is actually historically accurate, besides some Spartans opting to wear robes into battle. So historically accurate that if you were overweight back then, you weren't allowed to be a soldier. In fact, if you enlisted, you'd be put on a very strict training program and diet to make sure that you're at peak performance. Hence, why in all reference material, all Spartans were incredibly jacked. And while it didn't matter how big you were outside of their military, you were still looked down upon and ridiculed in public for being overweight. That certainly wouldn't happen in this day and age. Well, not that much, at least.
6.
The shield was sacred. So to most people, the shield doesn't seem like it has a great purpose outside of protecting its user from vicious and fatal sword attacks, which obviously, as it is a great purpose. Most of us in this day and age see it as dead weight. I mean, it's the sword that matters, am I right, guys? Well, all jokes aside, though, the shield serves a major purpose, especially to Spartans. Put it this way, Spartans were trained to use a shield effectively, but it serves a far greater purpose outside of just protecting yourself. Spartans are all trained together, and they're trained to fight together, so the protection of your shield also extends out to protecting your fellow soldiers.
5.
It technically wasn't 300 soldiers. Sorry, but as great as the film 300 was, it wasn't 300 soldiers that fought during the infamous Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC. Now, don't get us wrong, this is more of a nitpick as it's really not that big of a deal. However, 2 of the Spartans sent to Thermopylae did not die in the battle. History shows us that 2 Spartans, Eurytus and Aristodemus, were both at the time of battle were being treated for serious eye infections. These infections arose not too long after they had heard that the Persians had found a way around the pass so as to attack the Greek forces. Eurytus bravely charged into battle and died. Aristodemus, however, decided that it would be to stay behind. He would later return to Sparta with great shame. He later redeemed himself at the Battle of Plataea, where he died. The second Spartan who avoided death at Thermopylae was Pantitis. He was away at the time of battle, bringing a message to Thessaly. When Pantitis returned to Sparta, he was so ashamed not to have been in the battle that he took his own life. So there you go. While there were 300 Spartan soldiers, 298 of them fell during battle, while only 2 came back alive from Thermopylae. However, they didn't live much longer than their fallen comrades as they shortly after met their demise. 4. Quality assurance. No historical subject is without its darkest moments, and this may be one of the most darkest practices conducted throughout history. So as we've sort of touched upon, Spartans wanted nothing but perfection. That's why soldiers had to be in tip-top shape. That's why if you were overweight, you were ridiculed by anyone and everyone. That's why they've got a well-rounded educational system, which is what we will get into in a bit. So to live in this society, you needed to be 100% perfect in their eyes. This is why when a baby is born, they have quality assurance to judge as to whether or not they're worthy of living in their society. That means if they see one thing they deem imperfect, that child would be disposed of. If you've seen the film 300, you know exactly what we're talking about. Needless to say, it's a harsh, cruel practice, and it does beg the question as to how someone could do that to hundreds of thousands of kids.
3.
Education. Despite the fact that they lived during a primitive period of the world, Spartans had quite the high standard when it came to education. Now, from birth, if you can even make it past the first day of being alive, as we've previously discussed, children we taught how to fight for later in their life. All Spartans are highly trained when it comes to combat. However, it wasn't all about combat and conflict. Apart from learning how to fight, Spartan young boys had to go through a rigorous education system similar to what we have today. That means by the time they became adults, they would be well versed in reading, writing, mathematics, and history. On top of this, they were even taught how to sing, and we taught certain song for when they would go into battle later in their lives. Honestly, it's quite amazing to think that as far back as the Spartan era that they had quite a well-rounded educational system. It's just a shame not all kids born could experience it. Then again, there was also the dark side of school that every student was encouraged to embrace, where of course talking about bullying and fighting, as it was seen as way to allow Spartan kids to learn hand-to-hand combat from an early age. So in a sense, school was the literal interpretation of dog-eat-dog.
2,
They used iron rods and coins as currency and didn't care for wealth. Hey, we suppose it's much simpler than designing, making a mold, and creating coin currency, right? Unlike the rest of the world at the time, who were almost hell-bent on collection and hoarding things that were considered wealthy back then, as well as greed and power ruling over most societies. Wow, nothing much has changed when you think about it. Spartans were too busy suppressing their need for wealth. To them, valuables and currency meant nothing, and that their health and combat skills were much more valuable in their own eyes. Now, although they had no desire for wealth or materialistic goods, that doesn't mean they didn't have a currency system in place. I mean, everything in this world has a price and nothing is free. That's why instead of forging fancy-looking coins made out of expensive materials, they instead opted to use coins and rods made from iron. In fact, the use of gold and silver as currency in Sparta was actually barred. For boys, it was only a career in the army that motivated all their actions. Women were driven with the sole aim to produce more and more warriors for their land, hence why wealth was pointless in Sparta. Their priority was forging and creating warriors, not creating wealth.
1,
Women's rights. Sparta was actually pretty progressive when it came to women's rights, as they were more or less free to do whatever they wanted so long as it was within the restraints of the law. The law that has the same effects on everyone who lives in Sparta. So that means no one was able to break the law. Not men, not women, not children, not law enforcement, and not even kings and queens could break it. This can be seen similar to how Greek women of the time lived their lives, as they were also allowed to live free lives and do whatever they wanted. However, much like most societies in history, that doesn't mean that there were gender-specific roles. That means that any woman born was brought up to become mothers to what would eventually become gallant soldiers and warriors. But that didn't mean they only had to take part in education and nothing else, because they had a role to raise future warriors. That meant that they also had to lead by example, hence why Spartan women too underwent physical training like the boys. They were very much a part of society as men, and were trained in sports like wrestling, dart, and running. The training was given to women for preparing their bodies for childbirth. And that's our list. Did we leave anything out that you know about? Let us know in the comments section below. Please remember to subscribe and tap the bell button so we can notify you when we've uploaded new videos. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more elite facts.